Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, April 22nd, and it was the Easter weekend, so I didn't get much done. Unfortunately, I got suckered into doing a real-world jigsaw puzzle, which took ridiculous amounts of time and was a horrible picture because it was based off of an oil painting. And so it wasn't until the very last piece of the puzzle was put together did it look like anything, or did the picture in any way help you put the puzzle together. On top of which, it was a terribly cut puzzle and on very bad cardboard back. I used to do jigsaw puzzles quite a bit and eventually decided I was pretty much a professional at them, and I decided to retire from doing them. They're a mess and they take too long, and then you end up with this puzzle that is you're gonna have to either destroy your work, which is not super fun, or glue or laminate the puzzle together, and then you have basically this placemat or thing that's gonna flood your house for as many puzzles as you might do. So while I did get some scheduling done, and I'm a little proud of that, not enough scheduling. I'm well into September, so I'm running up until I guess what we should do to start today is do the Rumble Run bosses and get 2 packs. So let's do that. Let's also see that Rise of Shadows solo expansion might be happening tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah. And I had kind of planned on doing something else tomorrow, actually, so I'll have to kind of check first. Well, actually, I guess if it does happen tomorrow, it really wouldn't be too big of a deal anyways. So yeah, yep. So it was a slow weekend, not a lot got done. I would say not video game related, but there was a Sri Lanka terrorist attack that seems to be, in my opinion, and this is just my criticism, not getting reported enough, or in the same way as just even the Amsterdam fire happened just a few days earlier. So I would highly recommend, like, I had to manually go search Sri Lanka and look at the BBC article to get any news at all about it, which is just clearly an example, at least in the United States, that too few people are deciding the narrative and deciding what they're talking about, and there are too few news sources, and real news sometimes just doesn't get reported for one reason or another. And I'm trying very hard not to throw out opinions or conspiracy theories here, but I would highly recommend everybody look up where the story sits now. Like, I had to go to the BBC article and get the facts as they are now, and really search out to follow this story, because it seems to be getting buried.
We're using real source.
Alright.
We're using real sorts.
What does this guy's do? Health instead of mana?
Real
Sure.
sorts.
You got nothing.
Interesting. Alright. We are not in a flood of video game news today. Like, that's probably not super surprising either. Okay. let's see. So we can do this. Draw a card first. And then we can do this. And we can do this. And then we could do this. Or we could do this.
You got
We're
nothing.
using real swords.
There we go. So yeah, this might be a shorter stream. That's not gonna be a big problem for me. Wednesday probably we'll start catching up some more. Also because we're starting a little bit earlier, and that really I think just boils down to I decided, I guess, to go to sleep a little bit earlier, or somehow managed to go to sleep a little bit earlier. So if I do this, and then
the great outdoors.
mana crystals are probably the better move. Yeah, don't really need to do anything. Yeah, because I'm streaming earlier, there might be some news trickling in that we'll miss, so we'll probably need to go through my my news feed, my Twitter feed at the end of this stream. Stealthful Savage Roar. I don't hate the idea of Savage Roar. Get a bunch of treatments though. Like I only really have to win 3 victories here, and that's all I'm really gonna do. So yeah, TechRaptor has an article here, brackets rumor. Disney was offered a chance to buy a controlling stake in Nexon. Now, Nexon is the South Korean company that is so big, and this is kind of a longer problem of South Korean companies. Samsung is another great example of this, where these giant corporations that own like 100% of the market or 70% of the market or something, some huge amounts. These giant corporations and monopolies were allowed to be created, and now this is effectively a case where the person who owns Nexon does not like the instability of video games, it being a video game company, and wants to get out of having anything to do with video games, which does not work for South Korea because nobody can afford to buy 100% of Nexon by itself. Tencent is in the running to buy it as by a fraction of Nexon. If Disney was to buy Nexon, it would significantly
I'll be a real knight.
increase the strength of Disney as a corporation. But then there is also a problem with that idea in the fact that Disney has really just tried very hard to get out of
That minion can't fight yet.
like Disney has just gotten out of doing video games and decided just to license it. So Nexon, TechRaptor's article says it's a company known for publishing games such as Maple Story, Tree of Savior, which I played the game Tower of Savior, which probably was a ripoff of that game, or maybe it was called True Savior, or maybe it changed its name. And Counter-Strike Online. They also published the Lawbreakers game that went out of business. So this rumor doesn't make a lot of sense, but there is a certain believability, at least, that what could happen is... Alright, so if I do... Is there anything here I could do? No, so I just have to do this. And that really didn't do anything either.
We're using real swords.
You got nothing. Job's done.
Yeah, I should be trying to destroy this totem a lot faster. Yeah, two companies there, Nexon and Disney, both don't want to be in the video game industry. I don't see why Disney would fall for that, other than the fact that, you know, there probably is some level of swinging back and forth that happens. I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of exactly how some of the higher corporate policies and decisions get made, is that there's a left and right decision making. That being said, I would say, isn't it Bob Iger, I think, that runs Disney now? I could be totally wrong about that. I would say he is more like a Steve Jobs kind of guy, where he is, for the most part, totally in control of it, unless he hands the reins down, like he did for the Star Wars series, to a subordinate. And it seems like if he hands it to some subordinate, that subordinate then takes control of, has full control of that. Alright, let's see. This, and this, and then this, and then, let's see. Can I do this and this?
You got nothing. Job's done.
There you go. The next article we have here from TechRaptor is the Epic Store is boosting security going forward. The Epic Store has announced they plan to increase the security of the Epic Store after several claims that the services have put people at risk, despite Epic saying that they have not been hacked. The first step being taken is advising users of the Epic Store to use a unique password, especially if your email address has been hacked before. There has also been an apparent bot attack on the system where a botnet has been used to create millions of accounts using previously leaked email addresses, preventing certain people from making a new Epic Store account. The company has been working to delete the bot created accounts. Yeah, I could certainly see some shenanigans happening there, in particular where they're trying to destroy or get rid of the opportunity for people to make Epic Store accounts even if they want to. Right.
Watch the jaws.
Oh, that's not how that worked. Oops. Oops.
Let me help.
You got nothing.
Job's done.
Let's see. As well as advice on comprised and unique passwords, Epic Store will soon be receiving an update which will enable multi-factor authentication when logging in from a new device or after a period of inactivity. Let's see if they have anything else. They said they'll also be monitoring accounts for any passwords that have been leaked in the past. Checking it against the Pond password list version 4.0 and preventing the use of any passwords which have appeared to have been hacked before. So yeah, that's like some basic stuff in a lot of ways. Like that's not groundbreaking technology, and it's certainly not technology that should have taken them any time to implement. What am I doing? I hit the wrong button, I guess. Let's hop in there. One of the most, I would say, appropriate arguments against the Epic Store is the fact that it was just not launched with any of these features, nor was it intending on having any of these features until Fortnite became a success, and they tried to compete / destroy Steam, which is, I really think there is an argument to be said that their mentality actually is that they want to actually completely destroy Steam. And that's not just Epic, but I think that is also kind of many of the game devs, Randy Pitchford being a good example of one. I saw a story, at least alleged that much, recently over the weekend. The Randy Pitchford also is just like the worst. He is not the person. He's not the person to be spearheading that idea. Let's see. So I'm just gonna hit this, and then kill this.
Ooh, you're strong. I'm stronger.
Didn't do that. And then might as well play this. Just do that. Let's see, I don't know if this is something that... Yeah, TechRaptor has an article here, but it's not about video games. It's talking about a Ammonite anti-thief backpack and katana sleeves. Katana sleeves are apparently a brand of Magic the Gathering sleeves. I saw an accusation, I don't know if any of this is true or not, but that it's pretty common and pretty easy to cheat in Magic the Gathering by simply having different quality, different brand sleeves, slightly shinier, slightly rougher to feel on your cards. Inherently, this is the problem with I think Magic the Gathering in general, is that, and I'm a little surprised that Magic doesn't try to force everybody to play sleeveless, which would be so much in their favor, because it would mean that you would then almost guarantee the cards are getting destroyed a lot more often.
What a boy. I learned.
So yeah, I would say these sleeves probably are really expensive for what they are, and well, here, let's, I guess we can just show this whole screen. That's why I spent the effort to build the system, so I could do that. Let's see. So yeah, here's these sleeves, or several of the sleeves, and yeah, I much prefer digital card games for that reason more than anything else. It's just that is annoying as all get out to have cards that are actually supposedly of some value, but they're actually really easy to damage. I would also say Magic the Gathering at a certain point should just change its background art. I know that would break like consistency, but at some point you're just gonna have to do a refresh, and it's been years and years and years. The thing that caught my eye here is this Ammonite Anti-Thief backpack, which I guess, I mean, the problem with the idea of an anti-thief backpack, I guess, is that you're going to this might be a fine backpack that only unzips once it's off your back, because I think that's the idea, is that you cannot unzip it and open it because there are no zippers on the back, but there's still plenty of opportunity there for people to steal your entire backpack, including the anti-thief backpack, and there's still plenty of opportunity for people to steal things from you once you take something out of your backpack. In the end, there's sadly no real way to prevent yourself from getting robbed. It's just gonna happen, and it almost certainly will happen to you once. And frankly, there's a good chance that when it does happen, it will be in part because you just didn't think of something, and that is just how it's gonna go. Talking about video games more accurately though, TechRaptor has an article here. City of Heroes private server launched after the code was released online. So this defunct MMO now has a private server for anybody that's interested. Frankly though, if the game failed, which it seems it did, there's kind of nothing in my head that would tell me that I should go and try and play it. That story feels a lot like, yeah, there's a Knights of the Old, what is it, KOTOR? Knights of the, I forget the Star Wars game that everybody still plays. I guess it's pretty accurate to say that all many online games that are popular get private servers, but it so limits the ability and the ease of play for new players that it becomes this like ridiculously niche product. Right. Deal 2 damage. This. And then hit this. Then hit that. Our first game on Steam today is a bunch of Asian characters called the Counterattack of Sacrifice, which is a combination of words that doesn't mean anything. This looks like this is a Japanese game, I would say, by these shrines, because that's certainly something that China wouldn't stand for, is any religious symbology. But it probably, by the name, is being either mistranslated from a Japanese game or this is a cheap Chinese-made game to be sold to the Japanese market, which would be a little weird too. Let's see. Horror game made using Unity engine and the asset store. So it's an asset flip game. They even admit it as far as how I define assets. So $6.99, English and traditional Chinese. So yeah, it's a cheap Chinese game that went to the asset store, saw, oh well, there aren't actually that many Chinese assets that can be used.
Knowledge is power, and
Let's just instead make a Japanese looking game, which is close enough to sell to foreigners, I suppose. I'm not sure really at any point did China have any kind of Shinto or Hindu, not Hindu, any Shinto or Buddhism shrines, and I don't think they did in their history. And even if they did, one of the things about a atheist totalitarian country is that they are going to destroy any history or evidence of any religion, which happens quite a bit. Is happening today even, where ancient religious sites are getting destroyed. But yeah, the counterattack of sacrifice is definitely not making it to the fall list. I have to click over here so these actually hover. Would have been nice to get a legendary, but not surprised. Yeah, we're getting a lot of watch and learns, and we are definitely good to go for the next expansion. So that helped a lot. Now I guess we're just going to play Ranked Priest, and we might end up, I don't know if we're going to have more news today or more games, quests. We don't really have to get all 3 done, but it would be better to do it on a Monday than a Wednesday, and as far as my mind works. Alright.
Anduin versus Thrall.
For Doomhammer.
The light shall bring victory.
So I may have to zoom in on this story. So Criminal Girls is a game that's on Steam that the original Criminal Girls had more moe looking, I think they're supposed to be souls
Job's done.
that are in hell, and you're supposed to quote unquote, I guess, punish / correct them into absolution or something. It is a weird niche fetish. But the thing here was Criminal Girls X, they said was going to be very different because of all the censorship going on, particularly Sony censorship, and also the Valve censorship that was seemingly not going to be done. That was, at the time, it seemed like that was going to be a case. So there was a whole generation here, or at least small section of
Job's done.
of games that will be self-censored out of fear of being censored by Sony or Valve. So there may be echoes of those actions for the next few years. So the game was supposedly going to be different, and this definitely does look different. You have very much getting away from the moe look, although this character in silhouette might be a little bit younger, and this character in silhouette over here might be a little older looking. But the game route system, I think, if we can zoom in here, is going to explain what the game is. Let's see, where does this start? Let's see, it seems like there's going to be an adventure part for the game Asura, and adventure parts in the real world, boss battles, dungeon crawling, although maybe that's an on-rail shooting game, I'm not sure. Command style RPG battles with VR support, and then there's a guidance part, accepting their sins and reforming them, full reveal later in August. That's probably the part that's going to be heavily censored, if any part is. Let's see. A sublimation part, face their sins and attain enlightenment, and a love part, an evolution of the previous game's motivation part with VR mode, and please be satisfied with various meanings. So that part here, more than any other part, is probably the most part that's going to be censored. This whole game, when you look on the face of it, probably it sounds like a Stockholm syndrome simulator. If you're aware of this growing subgenre or niche in anime, there certainly was an anime where or a few actually, I imagine, that where similar ideas of atonement and punishment happens. It's almost like the Saw movies, if you were to make the Saw movies into just like softcore porno. I don't know if there's a better explanation. But yeah, it's not sadism and masochism as much as it is dominance and repentance roleplay, which okay, like that.
I just want some peace and quiet.
That might be about the best way to explain it. The Criminal Girls X is coming out free to play for iOS, Android, and PC in February of 2020. In Japan, it may not be coming out at all in the West, but I think it is. And if it's a free to play game, then things certainly will probably play different than the way the original game was, where it was a paid game. And so we might see shiftings in monetization models certainly too. Here's another one that would have been helpful.
Let the pain speak to me.
Job's done.
These three characters, and I'm stretching talking about this certainly, are the first three of 24 heroines. So that tells you also that you're going to have more characters than in the first game. I would be surprised if it's not too different from the game I'm trying out and still slowly making progress on, Destiny Child, where in Destiny Child being a gacha game, there's like at least every month going to be an event where a new character is introduced and shown, because that's just exactly how that would work.
Your rage sustains me.
Oh, I could have doubled his health, and I thought I was going to swap health. Well, that was a mistake then.
Let the pain speak to me.
I need to play spell cards at some point though. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it adds a new girl every month or so, and adds new content to keep people playing, and has a bunch of microtransaction options. I think it's probably also fair to say that the original Criminal Girls, well, we should look it up instead of just guessing. Silence adjacent minions.
I just want some peace and quiet!
And then double that. And then double that. And then attack. Attack. And then heal. In the turn. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Multiple Views Objects, which looks like it is another cheap Chinese game that seems like it really is just, maybe it's a puzzle game. I've seen some of these shadow casting puzzles before. This is the worst example of that. It's $1.89 here for the price. Copy a friendly hit. Minion's health. Let's see, if I do this, and then take that, and then do this, and do that, and then in the turn, let's see. So here's the original game, Criminal Girls Invite Only. Just for comparison, you can see it's rated mostly positive, 79%. You can see the anime style is going more for, not even really a moe, is much closer to a chibi art style. It's $19.99, and let's see how many pieces of DLC it has. 4 pieces of DLC. Doesn't seem like that's too bad. It is rated M for mature by the ESRB, and it's an RPG game. So yeah, I think it always tries to be a little cutesy with what it is, but yeah, they are definitely taking the art style in a different direction, and the monetization in a different direction. It is questionable to me right now whether because of Valve's previous censorship and one of the next games one of the most recent visual novels that was an adult visual novel coming out in a censored version on Steam and then an uncensored version from their own website. I wonder if there is potentially going to be a trend that way, or maybe Valve is telling people in particular, we'll sell a censored version of your game but not an uncensored version of your game. At the very least, that's the beginning of a conversation and a negotiation, whereas before it was no conversation and just being left in the air. Speaking though of censorship, there was a game that came out called Sexy Miss that is now completely missing from Steam. Oops, sorry, there was an error recorded. You must log in to see this content. Oh, okay, wait. That's not that it's missing. That's that you have to log in. Log in. So apparently I got logged out of Steam, which seems to happen often, quite frankly, which is ridiculous. I'm on the Steam website every couple days.
Consider.
So it really is just a case. I bet that they make you log in every now and then. Maybe for a good reason, maybe not. But then you have the whole stupid Steam Guard, which is at this point a little old, frankly. Like most of the Steam logins don't. Most of the two-factor authenticators have a system where you can just click yes to a pop-up, at least after you launched the app, but Steam Guard, Steam's two-factor authentication, just tells you that you have to type in these 5 letters, which is probably in no way more secure. So I have to definitely take back what I just said about censorship and Valve maybe coming back, because now I'm looking at this game Sexy Miss, and there is straight up nudity, large amounts of nudity, actual acts of sex being shown on the trailer. This is the plastic. I can't show you anything. I have to put this YouTube channel. It is the plastic asset flips of girls. They seem to be in a collection of houses and stuff. What I mean by plastic is that all the characters kind of look not very human and more like sex dolls. The uncanny valley is happening here. All of them are definitely going for a very Western, maybe even Russian style of appearance. Would be easier if I could just show something. This game requires VR and is $16.19 with a 10% discount. It is a completely uncensored version. I would argue that there might be something appealing to the idea of having a VR adult game. That being said, I think that there's probably some big problems with that too, and this is a really expensive game for what it's offering you. If we start to see a trend of adult focused VR games that are overpriced, it would probably sell a little better than the extremely low effort slide puzzles. But it is really a case, I think, where things are just gonna constantly change around. As soon as people stop seeing any returns for low effort trash in one category, they're gonna try and make low effort trash in another category.
Here, Stormy, Stormy.
So, next story we have on Gematsu is a story I can actually show you. Fitness boxing shipments and digital sales top 300,000. It is Golden Week, or soon to be Golden Week in Japan, which is a collection of like 3 to 5 national holidays in a row. What's interesting about this is 300,000 does seem to be the new mark of a success for at least small apps. Fitness boxing looked like it was kind of a fun game. I don't know. The one thing I'm not really sold on the Switch is the Joy-Cons, not particularly just because they have the Wii style movement on it, but because they're so focused on the Wii style movement, and compared to an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, there's almost nothing on the two Joy-Cons combined. So I probably would want to get like a Pro controller or something for Switch if I was going to play Switch games immediately. You know what, I probably shouldn't be playing ranked, but you know what, let's just stick with it. If I lose again, I'll go to casual. But yeah, 300,000 seems to be the mark of a successful small game, whereas I would say 2 million seems to be the mark of the of a successful large game.
The light shall bring victory.
But also, I would say 300,000 and 2 million are numbers that can be also easily manipulated, because it could be that 300,000 units have shipped, or $300,000 in sales have been made, and that story we just looked at was 300,000 units shipped, I believe, or sold, which you would have to then multiply the price of that game, which was probably $30, to 300,000 units being shipped, which is almost $1 million. It's 900,000 if it's no, that would be, nope, I'm doing my math wrong. I think that would be 9 million, and that's too high a price. So yeah, I'm still pretty confused, obviously. Let's see.
This guy's toast.
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Contributing developers are up in arms over Capcom's use of the FB Alpha emulator. Licensing issues, I imagine, might be confusing or not being followed here. Let's see. I imagine what we're gonna find out before I go any further is that the FB Alpha is a open source emulator for all use, and a lot of people thought it was while some people thought it was probably open source for non-commercial use, and you gotta kind of explain and know what algorithm, what you're using, or what license you're using.
Bring the pain.
Let's go and hit this guy. Like, some of the devs are arguing that the FB Alpha can't be licensed for commercial use. Ben Harris, one of the leading devs behind FB Alpha, says FB Alpha has been licensed for the Capcom home arcade, but some are arguing that he doesn't have the authority to do so due to FB Alpha's development history. FB Alpha is open source and distributed under a license that specifically notes you may not sell, lease, rent, or otherwise seek to gain monetary profit from FB Alpha, which that seems to be, in a nutshell, that should be the end of the argument right there. But what could be argued here is if Ben Harris is saying, well, I released that version with that license online, open source, but I am giving a different version or with a different license to Capcom. Let's see. FB Alpha was based on the code of several preceding emulation projects, including emulators like MAME and Final Burn, each with their own licensing terms. The FB Alpha license specifically notes that due to the use of MAME code in FB Alpha is also subject to the terms of the MAME license. A similar disclaimer in the Final Burn is found further down on the page. So, it seems like to me that what has happened here is Capcom / Koch Media, in this case, said they have to or felt the need to pay some kind of license fee to prove that they own the rights to that they own the rights to use the FB Alpha emulator instead of frankly just using the FB Alpha emulator, because it says you may not sell, lease, or rent or otherwise seek to gain monetary profit from FB Alpha. Well, I don't know how that wouldn't also count. Yeah, in my head, I don't think it would stand up in court if you said, "Well, I'm not profiting from the emulator. I'm profiting from the hardware, and I'm just selling the hardware." But this hardware comes pre-installed with the software. It would have been a lot smarter, frankly, if Capcom had just written their own emulator, but that takes work, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were cases in the past where Nintendo's been caught using Nintendo emulator software. Yeah, Capcom would probably have been in less trouble if they had just stolen basically FB Alpha and not licensed it. Legally, they might not have been in less trouble, but certainly now people are upset about that. The one thing emulator developers probably don't want as devs is the idea that
Is someone injured?
that your work to preserve and allow the playability of old games to then be turned for a profit by some other company. Programmers in general are not going to be happy about the idea of their work being used in a way that does not either benefit them or benefit society, and most open source developers are trying to benefit society. And certainly Capcom releasing a 2-player fight stick is not going to really benefit the open source community or society much. I did that wrong. I did that really, really wrong. Alright, well, whatever.
Right away.
So, is this really gonna land in courts or anything? No, it probably more than anything else is just going to lead towards a schism and some new split off group. I think that there already are some split off versions of Final Burn in particular. I think there's a Final Burn Alpha 2000, and I wouldn't be surprised if if this is the kind of schism that would lead towards twice a whole new name change. Let's see. Yep. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Fairy Solitaire Harvest, which is another solitaire game. This one is not widescreen. It's $8.99 discounted. And let's see, 44 achievements. That's probably a little more than a solitaire game deserves as far as achievements, but whatever. Yeah, I'm still of not interest. I'm still of no interest to play solitaire games. Alright, 10 more priest cards to play. Next we have a game on Steam called AXYOS Axios Battle Cards. Looks like it's another card game. It doesn't look great. Kind of looks like a mobile port. I'm willing to potentially keep an eye on something like this. This is $5.59 with a 30% discount. It does have multiplayer in it, but it's English and Russian, which is a red flag, and paying to enter a collectible card game actually kills this. I'll pay for a single player deck building game. Sure, I'll consider that and buy a game like that, but I'm not gonna pay to get into a game like this that inherently will only survive if it adds more cards, and if it adds more cards and I had to pay to get in, almost certainly it's going to add more cards as DLC. And so there's no free-to-play option for a game like that. And I'm almost 100% free to play on Hearthstone, 5 years in, and I really would like to stay that way. Next we have a game on Steam called Outbreak Lost Hope, which looks like it might be an asset flip horror survival game. I never get why they do over the shoulder and then have the main character way off to the side of the screen. That's just really, really distracting to me. Yeah, this looks like an asset flip survival game. It's 25% off for $11.24, but then there's a $40 deluxe DLC Apocalypse bundle. Yeah. It's single player only also, so it's not like this is multiplayer. Yeah, I don't know if Last of Us ever tried to be like a multiplayer game, whether that would really succeed or not. Like a survival world that is a little bit darker than Dying Light. And not so zombie specific as Dying Light is. I think there probably is a way that you can make a game like that and it would succeed. But I think you're going in the wrong direction if you did that, because the thing about zombie games and zombie stories in general are they're designed actually to be ways of limiting the number of characters you have to write so you can tell a better story, while also introducing a ever-present, easy to describe, easy to understand enemy conflict. Let's see. If I do this, if I double his health. Let's see, you double his health. Then you play a coin. And then silence a minion. And then the turn, I guess. So yeah, if you the reason you're doing a zombie game is to make a really good story-based single-player experience. That's why Telltale Walking Dead makes so much sense and work. What you really don't need to do in a zombie game, and even though Left 4 Dead worked, is make it a multiplayer, replayable, just horde shooter game. The one thing that, in my opinion, didn't work for Left 4 Dead was the fact that you were spending a lot of time playing the same scenarios over and over again and not really getting any kind of story, just a very generic story. Speaking of story, apparently Team Fortress 2 was going to have an Adult Swim animation series, and Valve literally just could not work with Adult Swim. They couldn't even get the pilot down to the amount of time they wanted it to be, so that there was enough time for ad breaks, and they couldn't get it delivered on time. Eventually, what was the pilot did get made and put out as just an advertisement for an update on Team Fortress. But according to Valve News Network, it's just kind of an example of just like Valve's deadlines not getting met. Valve not running a business like a business makes them impossible to deal with. So I don't know how people, I guess maybe on Steam, in the instance of Steam, it doesn't really matter as much, but because they at least managed to automate all that system. Let's see. But yeah, if you were gonna do any special deal with Valve, it just might not get done. That is the problem with a lack of control. Like, it's the problem with the libertarian idea in general, is that, oh, everybody will just do everything that benefits themselves, and that will somehow magically make a society, and everybody will just pay for their own private police, and that will somehow protect society equally and fairly. Or, which, not to say the police in the United States at least protect people equally and fairly, but at least it's not straight out bribery that's required. Guess we'll go ahead and just play these cards while we're here.
Job's done.
Yeah. But also, I kind of don't see Valve changing. What's going to happen, almost certainly, is probably Gabe Newell is either going to retire or die. And then we'll see Valve change. Gabe Newell is no spry Steve Ballmer or Bill Gates. He's horribly unhealthy looking, and it seems like they don't particularly feed anything. Now, to be fair, I did hear that Gabe Newell has celiac disease, like a gluten intolerance, actual gluten intolerance, so maybe that in part affects his appearance, but I don't think it's that much of a factor. And from what I hear, he mostly plays League of Legends and just sits sits in his office all day, which would be a major factor to his unhealthy appearance.
No idea what I'm capable of.
So, but yeah, I suspect we'll see him retire or pass, and then his shares will either go to somebody else who decides to run the business differently, or they'll get disseminated. That won't immediately solve the problem, and I would much prefer to see, say, the former CEO of Nintendo of America come in and just clean the place up in general, than just to see the remaining shareholders and stockholders adopt the same policy. In a funny way, basically, it would be better if a new corporation was formed. A spin-off, hey, you hated how Valve was run, you worked at Valve, come work for us, and we're gonna run this like a real business. And that became big enough and popular enough and had enough like investment capital to just buy the product of Steam away from Valve. If there was a split there, or that would be ideal. If Valve only could focus on making games to keep itself as a business instead of running a store front, then that would be appreciated.
Greetings.
Let's see. That being said, that kind of is what the Epic Store is trying to do. It's just that the Epic Store is not going about it in a way that you would appreciate. And Good Old Games in the same way could have done that if Good Old Games had focused on all games instead of just old games. A lot of people seem to think that they needed to go with different niches that probably didn't need to go with. Right. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Lanternum, which looks like it's a bit of an asset flip game, but it actually looks like it's good enough to be playable. When I was watching this video as I was ranting, you're playing as this raccoon with this light. The light changes colors and turns some of those foggy blocks here into solid blocks where you can walk. And yeah, here it is. Like, clearly this is a color puzzle game with maybe not a great amount of actual content here, but
I must consider.
I'm kind of willing to put this on the fall list. It's $8.99 for 10% off, and seems to be this other games named Druid, which we could go look at Druid. There's nothing as far as a red flag here. Druid is also rated positively as a single player adventure game. Seems simplistic. So it feels to me like it is a company that is definitely trying to definitely trying to expand and get better. So yeah, I think Lanternum and Druid both deserve a follow, to at least think about playing and covering the games. TechRaptor has an article here. Skyhill review Bulimia doesn't work that way. Skyhill, I think, is a 2D horror game. I think. Looks to me like it's a RPG. They gave it a 5.5 average. Sky Hill has an interesting premise, but its systems are ultimately too simple and designed to provide any compelling choice during gameplay. The overall lack of progression or variety makes replaying it after completing it once feel pointless. Pros, decent voice acting, large weapon variety, and tactical perk variety. I would argue it's probably a con that it has voice acting at all, when that money and energy could have gone to making a better game. Cons: gameplay lacks complex tactics, weapons feel samey, wasted limb targeting system, no sense of progression, and no incentive for repeated runs. And I would assume that the argument is going to be made that it is a short game also.
Job's done.
I don't think Sky Hill was on my follow list, but that certainly is a review that makes me want to take it off if it is. Let's see. That should be enough cards. One more priest card. Darn it. GameIndustry.biz has this article, Kit Fox, people are more important than projects. This is a good sentiment, but it is also a self-promoting sentiment. This is the developer kickstarted of this game, Boyfriend Dungeon, talking about that. So in the long run, I agree with that, but it is hard as a video game consumer to really have anything to say that coordinates or centers around that idea. Like, yes, people are always more important than video games. Video games are probably very low on the ranking of importance in general, amongst many other things. But it is a hard sell to tell me that this game is not as good as it could have been because we needed to give maternity leave or give less hours to the game developers. The only thing I can suggest is you have to do a lot of stuff in secrecy, and in this case, with Boyfriend Dungeon, they have not really done a lot of stuff in secrecy. They have instead gone the exact opposite direction and kickstarted and moved towards letting everybody know that game is in development. Boyfriend Dungeon as a game in particular still is up in the air for me. It looks like it might be an interesting little RPG dungeon crawler game with a funny fantasy twist of the swords you find are your boyfriend / girlfriend. Some of them seem to be female characters at least. But that's kind of, yeah, it's kind of still all just up in the air if it is a good game. And until Boyfriend Dungeon and that company that made Boyfriend Dungeon gain a level of success, you really can't make an argument that, oh, our way is the best when we haven't seen that their way even keeps them in business. Double Fine is probably a good example also of a company that seems to be pretty good about keeping employees but pretty bad about making games. Cyan, for many years, the makers of Myst seem to be pretty good about keeping a small number of people employed while not really making any games. And I don't know if there's too many other companies out there that make a good example of that, though. By far, the much more prevalent scenario is that you have companies like Activision Blizzard and EA that have hundreds upon hundreds of employees that they overwork and mistreat, but they make good games. So there probably is something in the happy middle there. But in the end, yes, people are more important. Like I'd be, if you told me the trade-off was games were going to be mediocre at best going forward, but all video game developers everywhere are paid well and not overworked, then I'd say, okay, let's do it. That'll be the new standard. We'll just embrace a communist kind of mentality on video game development, and everybody will go to work and put in the bare minimum effort or a medium amount of effort, and then that will be that.
Your rage sustains me.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Transistor is free on the Epic Game Store, and World of Goo is free from May 16th. So the Epic Game Store is still giving away games. This is basically, though, just games from a couple of years ago that would have been on the Humble Bundle store, which were basically free. They required $1 for a Steam code, and that is pretty much that. As far as so the Epic Game Store is either paying for exclusives, which is irritating a lot of people, or they're getting free games that they're giving away that are of no real interest. They're not pulling off any major giveaways. Like, if they could give away The Witcher 3 or something like that, which there might be some attention grabbing from that idea, but yeah, nobody's gonna really care about Transistor in 2019. Nobody's gonna really care about World of Goo. Next we have a game on Steam called Survivor, which is apparently just a combination of very weird looking faces and items. Like, this is just really creepy looking. Yeah, I don't know where any of this is coming from, but it's free to play, and it's an English and French game. Well, I guess it would be the French that would do something avant-garde. And this is certainly weird, to say the least. Alright, we've got Watch and Learn on the European account, and I'm certainly not going to re-roll that, so we just need to play Warlock class cards, and I may just have to off-screen get the Watch and Learn done. Yeah, Survivor, though, is too weird for me, and it's a free-to-play game anyway, so I'll need to talk about it. TechRaptor has this article, Raising Kratos is a God of War documentary coming soon to YouTube. Too little, too late, frankly. I think if you're going to have a documentary talking about the game as it was being made, particularly in this case since Sony is making it, and thus Sony has a direct connection and business relationship with the development of God of War, why is this not as a documentary coming out 2 weeks after the game came out, within that first 6 months of it being released? Like, I am fairly certain that 6 months ago was not when God of War came out. Maybe it was, but even at that, we are on the edge of 6 months when it should have totally been out after everybody kind of knew in general what the ending was, or didn't care about spoilers for anybody who hasn't played the game. Yeah. it feels like now Sony is just trying to keep God of War in the public eye because they've got nothing else to sell or say, which I don't know if that actually is the case, but it just seems oddly timed. Arguably, I would also say that there's a smaller, much smaller niche group of people that are interested in
My shield
that are interested in what am I trying to say here?
Why me?
Two.
I fight.
6. Yep. There's a much smaller group that are interested in watching a documentary on how a game is made, particularly since most of these don't go into any kind of code. They're not going to show you code or the process in any detail of making things. You might get a speech made at like the Game Developers Conference or something, but that's about as far as it's gonna go. You're not gonna get in-depth tutorials on how things are made or how things are done. And the one thing gameplay programming wise that was well received in God of War was the axe always making its way back to Kratos' hand, and then that's pretty much it. The rest of it is just fighting AI on the enemies, as far as I know, would be the next thing that would interest me, and maybe some hair tech and rendering tech to make it look as good as it is. There really isn't going to be much of a story there. It's not going to be like the King of Kong where you had decent documentary makers making a very storyline, almost scripted interpretation of what happened to clearly say, we're going to cut this so one guy is the good guy and one guy is the bad guy, and it's going to be an epic battle. It'll probably just be a boring thing. That being said, I guess Sony is doing better than when they were doing the game shows to become a programmer, because that was terrible too. I guess Sony's not making its own original TV content anymore for the PlayStation. I guess if they are, I haven't heard anything about it in years. Keep on playing. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. The stylish cel-shaded FPS 13 XIII is getting a remake and coming in November 13th. The so 13, the new one, not the original, is coming to PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Switch this November. I have, based on the graphic novel series 13, base is 13 is an amnesiac soldier accused of killing the president of the United States. 13 wakes up in a Brighton beach with a small key and a tattoo as clues to he is. Over the course of 34 levels, 13 must seek and unveil the dark government conspiracy. So this sounds a lot like if Hitman killed the president. I'm gonna watch this trailer. I don't recall a game called 13, so it must not have come out when I was playing video games. It must have come out between there's several years between like the Wii and the Xbox 360 where I was not playing games, and I guess this was just one of those games that came out during that point. I don't know how much of a remake this will be, though. Yeah, this is just a teaser trailer that just kind of shows nothing. But yeah. It might be cool. It might be a cool little throwback. It might not be. November 13th is pretty close, considering that there hasn't been any other promotion or talk about it. Also, E3 is going to be happening, so it's a little weird that you would try to get out before E3 and start talking about your game. Moving on, we have a game here called Azrael Circle Chapter 4. Seems like this is a RPG Maker game that it has dark screenshot syndrome, and also seems to be serialized, which is a problem. $1.39 for 30% off. I'm not interested in that. We're in a weird position here where I feel like I'm going to just rush through this and have one episode. I can already see the end. And since there's a watch and learn here in the European account, I really can't do that until somebody else is playing. So if I just get through all this news today pretty quickly, I think we'll just have one episode and make it easy on ourselves. One that costs one more. Which one costs one more? There you go. All my Murlocs cost only one. Next we have a game on Steam here called Rescue Team 6, which looks like it seems to be a rescue game, but to me it looks like it's just a city resource management game. Nothing interesting looking here. $5.59 is too expensive at even at a discount. And it doesn't seem like this dog has anything to do with anything. Let's see. Silence.
Your magic shall not save you.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Hardware Engineers, which seems like it's a low-effort house flipper simulator game that I guess all of the idea there has died down. No, this actually isn't house flipping. This is the PC building simulator. It's a clone of that. Which, yeah, that doesn't look that bad. Yeah, no, this does look terrible. This game does. I don't know what I'm saying. Every time I see this idea that you can run a computer store and build computers and actually sell them, I always get a little sad because it's just not really true. In 99.9% of all of the United States, you can't really run a computer shop unless you've got some major contracts with some small tier and medium tier companies backing you up and giving you most of your money, because the problem with computer shops is they often turn into just like pawn shops. People coming in wanting to sell 20-year-old computers, people bringing in 20-year-old computers and asking you to fix them and make them run like they're brand new computers. People wanting to buy a new computer but not willing to spend any money on it, and like it's just it's so frustrating. You never really are going to have a good day running a computer shop. there's some ways to kind of get around that. If you're specializing in repairing, say, broken cell phones, you're instead of a computer shop, or repairing other parts of electronics that aren't computer centric, you can get a little bit away from that. But yeah, repairing cell phones in general, you have to specialize to the point where you're able to do something that an average person isn't able to do. So you're not just fixing cracked screens, but you're saving severely damaged hardware. To the point where you've got your own YouTube channel around fixing cell phones. Moving on, that's more of a rant than anything. We have a game here called Earthshakers. Looks like it's a VR game where you shoot and swing a sword. I definitely saw a Wii game that was very much like this, not visually, but the general concept of you have swords and guns. It was like one of the very first games to come out for the Wii. Earthshakers is free to play, so also seems like it requires VR. No, it has a non-VR mode, but yeah, there's nothing here other than a tech demo. It is an important tech demo, but also arguably a tech demo that's been done before. All that Wii technology and programming was clearly not reusable or forgotten when VR came out. Otherwise, frankly, everybody would just be using Wiimotes with their VR headsets at the very basics. Wiimote Motion Plus controllers are basically what we should be using with VR, and there should be plenty of Wii games that would have been ported immediately, if that would work, and that would be helpful. Let's see. Interesting. I destroyed it, but I wasn't able to give these guys +1/+1. That card was supposed to give your minions +1/+1, but it didn't work in the way it resolved that way. Next we have a game on Steam called Rekindling, which seems like it's a top-down resource. No, I don't know what it is. It seems like it's a top-down farming sim or something. Settlement building and management game. Okay. Well, whatever it is, it looks like garbage. It's early access. It's $4.99. And no, I don't think it is anything like Plague Inc. or Cities Skylines. In quality, at least. Still need to play more Warlock cards. I didn't even look to see. Yeah, there's a couple people on. I could probably get a watch and learn.
Gul'dan versus Thrall.
Next we have a game on Steam called Zombotron, which looks like it's a shoot 'em up game. And, well, I haven't covered a lot of shoot 'em up games. There's nothing that looks bad about this, so this is one that deserves, I think, to be on the fall list. $12.74 discounted seems a little expensive for what you're offering. It's an English and Russian game with 8 achievements. Yeah, it deserves a follow. We need to see if people enjoy this game before I decide whether or not I'm gonna buy it. Next we have a game on Steam called The Underground Watcher and a bunch of Asian characters, which seems like it's a low effort platformer and hack and slash beat 'em up kind of dungeon crawler game. I call it beat 'em up more than a dungeon crawler though. This in animation style and gameplay style seems to be all over the place. Let's see. It's $13.11. No, it's $11.30 with 13% off. It's English and Chinese, and yeah, that's what this looks like. It is a low-effort Chinese game.
Put this apple on your head.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Montague Dodge, which seems like it's a VR tech demo. Just immediately, the idea, if this is an idea that you're in the VR and you're dodging cubes that are flying towards you, that's gonna be a nightmare. Yeah, you're gonna twist yourself all around and get hurt very quickly trying to dodge objects in VR. This is early access for $2.99. Not only do I say no to this game as far as being interested in this, I think you are in actual physical danger if you play this game. Yeah, you're just gonna sprain your neck, sprain your back, something like that. Twisting and turning, trying to dodge items.
Why do you call?
So if I do this,
Job done.
next we have a game on Steam called Icarus Prima Regula, which looks like it's an infinite runner in 3D. The problem I think you're going to run into this is either this video is sped up or you're just not going to have a great opportunity to see what's ahead of you. The infinite runners from the top-down perspective make a lot more sense. And even if this is playable, it's just an asset flip infinite runner game. Early access requires VR headset for $4.99 with no discount, which makes it too cheap for a VR game. Draw 3 cards and then discard all of them.
Your magic shall not save you.
Okay, let's see. Hit this. Hit that.
As you command.
Same argument, same story. Next we have a game on Steam called The Cat and the Box, which looks like it's a rotoscoped using ASCII art video, which is an interesting idea, but it's not widescreen. And it says it's a first-person single-player story-rich game. See, the thing here is, I think there's a video plugin that you could do this on any video, just so that doesn't inherently mean anything, this art style, and it's really hard to justify playing this for this gimmick. They want $2.99 and it's English only. I feel like I'll put this on the fall list just because it's really weird looking, but I imagine this is the kind of game that is just not visually appealing enough to get enough people to play it for enough people to review it. There's like 3 reviews right now and they're all positive, which kind of means nothing to me because almost anybody that posts a game can probably get 3 people that are their friends to review it. Alright, let's see if we've got a watch and learn we can do. while we're here. Tech Raptor has an article here. Warcraft 2 Battle.net Edition Rewind Review. So this is not the good old games. Warcraft 2, I don't think. Or maybe it is. Because the problem is Battle.net now. Oh, it is on good old games. It is not the same Battle.net that existed for some of these first Blizzard games. The review is a 9.0 amazing. Warcraft 2 is a fantastic real-time strategy experience, while still holds up 20 years after it was released, even if the multiplayer is super clunky to set up. Pros, 2 lengthy campaigns, pixel graphics are beautiful, units have character, map creator adds a ton of replayability, cons, units are interchangeable, multiplayer is fiddly, and the between mission screens are bland. So yeah, I could see myself, once these Warcraft 1 and 2 once Warcraft 1 and 2 comes out on Steam, I could see myself buying them and playing those games. Definitely buying them. It's slightly more of a challenge to commit the time to play old games. But never will there be a better time to play Warcraft 1 or 2 than when they come out on Steam. Alright, so that's the watch and learn done. And we have almost 15 of the Warlock cards done. So it really wouldn't hurt to switch over to the Asian account right now and deal with that. And we'll then have half of a daily quest to do on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Tech Raptor has an article. The Walking Dead, the Telltale Definitive series has been announced, which is apparently a box bundle, each of which contains different bonus material, so you'd have to buy all 3 of them. I'm not sure though what consoles these bundles are going to include. See, $99, $100 for the game content, digital bonuses, and then a t-shirt and some pins and some other garbage. Yeah, just a bunch of garbage. Or the Guardian Pack for $249, which has everything in the protector pack, plus a couple more pieces of garbage. Or the $350 pack, which includes even more game garbage. And there apparently will be a PC version of this box for game. Alright. I'm gonna, let's see, reroll win 2 games into 5 games. Okay, let's play Rogue. That's clearly what we need to be playing. Rogue on casual. So here we can see some of the collector's pack garbage you would be getting. They're available for pre-order officially from Skybang's website. So they're just trying their very best to get as much money out of that. Which is weird, because you would have thought with that Epic Store exclusivity they would have been able to make a lot of money already. But I wouldn't be surprised if they if Skybound Games took over not only the games but the kitsch, the tchotchkes, all this statues and t-shirts and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if all of this was in development by Telltale and Skybound Games just bought it all and said we're going to make some collector's packs and sell it and try to get as much money as possible. $350 for a collector's edition is ridiculously expensive. Even $100 for a collector's edition is ridiculously expensive. Like, nobody wants that except for a tiny niche group of people. As somebody who got the collector's edition of The Walking Dead Telltale 1 for Xbox 360, all that came with was like an omnibus of the first few of the first large chunk of the Walking Dead comic book, and that wasn't even worth it. I don't believe I ever even read the comic book. Because it was just not the video game, and I was just not interested at that point. So my only real concern here is, am I somehow going to get forced into buying the entire definitive series of The Walking Dead, because they're not just going to release the final season of The Walking Dead on Steam. Because if they do that, that would piss off a lot of people, including me. Let's see.
Job's done.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. A secret City of Heroes server was revealed, and developers respond to drama. This feels like this is almost a different way of saying that the source code was released in, and somebody is running a private server now. I kinda don't care about City of Heroes, and I don't think enough people did for this to really be too much news though. So, in the interest of saving time, if nothing else, I'm not gonna really read over this article. Yeah, but instead just say it's there if anybody else is interested in it.
Hey, good tickets don't come cheap.
Next we have a game on Steam called 3x3 Mini Shogi. I don't know how to play Shogi. It's Japanese chess, but I don't think it works exactly like chess, so that you could just translate what each symbol means as far as whether it's a pawn, a knight, a bishop, a queen, a king. Usually Shogi is not in a 3x3 grid, so I don't think that this probably would help you learn how to play Shogi anyways. It's 89 cents discounted, English only, which is weird. You would think it would be Japanese too, at least in the interface. I don't think too many Japanese people are interested in Shogi either. Sad to say, but combo, do 2 damage.
This guy's toast.
Next we have a game on Steam called Adeki Card Games Deluxe, which looks like it is not very interesting looking card games. Well, the problem here is the visual polish on the games. Like, this seems like you're playing spades or hearts, or some game. This seems like you're playing a 4-player game, 2-player game. This is clearly cribbage because there's a crib there. I think that's the name of that game. It's been a long time since I played that. This seems like maybe you're playing poker, but it doesn't seem like this. You have to balance this against something like Tabletop Simulator, where if you did a game like this and it was very polished and worked very well, it might be better than Tabletop Simulator and worth it, but it doesn't look visually better than Tabletop Simulator would be. And almost certainly, Tabletop Simulator would be a recommendation. Here we are. And that's $19.99 for several different tabletop games and plugins and DLC. Where this is just $7 for card games.
Choose soon.
So yeah.
Job done.
Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian characters and it says Victory is Justice. It looks like it's a hack and slash mobile port of a mech fighting game. Probably a cheap Chinese mobile game being ported to Steam. It's $1.39 discounted, English, Chinese, and Japanese. So it might be a cheap Japanese game, but whatever it is, it's clearly nothing that looks interesting.
Desperate seas I roam. Let me go home.
Need to play as many combo cards as possible. Next we have a game on Steam here called Cat Defense, which looks like it is a Plants vs. Zombies kind of style game, tower defense kind of game, with several different classes of cats. It's a slightly cutesy idea, not animated very well. These cats don't look different enough to visually stand out compared to the zombies and the plants in Plants vs. Zombies. This is 69 cents discounted, English only game. Yeah, just not enough polish on it for that to be something. This. And then this. And then this. And we need more combo cards, so I'm gonna do this.
Job done.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Chinese characters or Asian characters. Chaos Knight Interlude. Says it's an RPG. There's no widescreen here. It feels like it's a cheap Japanese RPG that may have been ported. I mean, this screen in particular seems to scream a port job done badly. English language not supported, discounted to $5.95, 94 cents, and it's a Chinese game. It's a little surprising that it's a Chinese game because there's these metal bikinis here, but I guess maybe the Chinese games that get put on Steam aren't going to really try to in any way be following the Chinese censorship policies. I guess that would make a decent amount of sense.
Here we go.
Job done.
Let's see. Adventure Gamers, which is kind of a new site that only centers around point-and-click adventures for the most part, is doing a Miss Series Collector's Edition giveaway, which would be the book that has a computer screen in it and shows it and all. You can win a box set. So I was going to enter into that, but I figured it'd be only fair to tell other people about it. That was retweeted by Cyan, so they're promoting it, which gives it a level of believability that they're not just running a con. Although, frankly, a lot of contests and giveaways do feel like they are designed in such a way that they could easily not fulfill the giveaway at all, and there's really nobody ever checking. There really should be like a better organization, government organization that just follows up on all these online contests and says you have to tell us who the person is that won and what they won. You'd think that the IRS would do something like that, I guess, but that information never becomes public. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Cristallo, which looks like you're playing as a crystal ball that you roll around and can break. Much like that game Glover I was talking about a few days ago for the Nintendo 64.
Watch your back.
What this really is it's just a bunch of asset flips and dangers put together. So yeah, it's not really a good game. I can reasonably guesstimate it's $14.99. But yeah, you looking at the video in particular, it's pretty obvious it's not something that I would want to play. Let's see, play this.
The light protects me.
Next we have a game on Steam that's clearly a joke troll game, Drunk Fee Walls, which seems like it's just, you know, political satire troll game. I don't think that these kind of games should be allowed on Steam because they're very low effort, bad quality games, regardless of the politicians involved. I've seen cases of this where there's politicians in countries I've never even heard of, and none of them ever look good. $4.49 discounted, and saying it's adults only rating, which that almost certainly isn't. It's just like not something that I think should be allowed, just for quality control issues. I honestly would like to see a kind of political satire video game with real world politicians in it, but there's never been a good example of that. Not even extremely old United States politicians. There's not been a good game that I can think of that's had Abraham Lincoln in it or anything like that. Maybe some of the Fallout gags with Robot Lincoln are about the best closest thing I've ever seen that even comes close. Or Day of the Tentacle, I guess, has George Washington and Thomas Edison in it, but yeah, that's about it.
Armor made to fit.
Let's see. We are so close to the end that it is surprising. I think I did close some of the games from over the weekend. That probably helped. Gematsu has an article, Sisonia, When They Cry. I feel like the phrase when they cry is a Japanese phrase that gets used a lot. Or there is a series called When They Cry, at least as an anime series or something. But this game is coming to the West simultaneously with the Japanese release this summer. A different turnstile from the 7th expansion's previous works. So This is also coming from Manga Gamer, which was the publisher of that other game that wasn't in a censored version on Steam. So yeah, I'll watch this trailer and see if I can give a better description of what the gameplay is, because I certainly don't know.
The light protects me. I fight.
Okay, I'm seeing just background of cities animations. You know what this looks like is it looks like it's a joke trailer to the beginning of Ghost in the Shell, where the Major jumps from the top of a building, and yeah, I think that's what this is. So it's not really giving me a great description other than there are anime girls that can have armor magically appear upon them, and it's tagged Witch Hunter, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're called witches. Let's come over and play this, I guess.
I don't have
Rush,
enough mana.
can't do that. Overkill, draw cards.
Good tickets don't come cheap.
I fight.
Hey, bitch!
Oh, apparently this game was announced at SakuraCon 2019, which started the 19th and ends on the 21st in Seattle. Interesting. So yeah, a Western Japanese convention that I'm not up on enough to know when those occur or not. Nice. Players.
This guy's toast.
I fight. I fight.
No refunds!
Played that terribly. Next, we have a game on Steam called Emergency Water Landing. I wouldn't be upset if there was a flight simulator game that simulated an emergency water landing as part of the training. I feel like centering around something that very rarely would occur and then making it what looks like a simplistic, silly game seems a little bit exploitative and not very creative as far as a gameplay concept in general. It's $3.99, and yeah, it's just not visually appealing enough to justify potentially a how would I phrase it? A exploitatively
Lights out.
I fight.
objectionable game, sort of. It's like,
Job's done.
it's not something most people would want to think about as emergency water landings. And yeah. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Discharge, which seems like it's a real-time strategy game. And it doesn't look quite polished enough, nor does its camera angle seem to be consistent. It seems like you go from top down to over the shoulder third person perspective to flying in the sky. This game is $17.99. I just don't think there's enough polish here to make me trust this game developer. Plus, there's so many other real-time strategy games out there. It is also worth mentioning, certainly, that I shouldn't be adding to my plate as far as real-time strategy games are. Right, this next one is tagged sexual content and nudity, so let me just make sure it's family friendly enough. It looks like it's family friendly enough. So next we have a game on Steam here called Gamble Fight Plus. You can see it's already rated mixed. It's a bunch of anime characters fighting each other, tag sexual content and nudity. Again, the problem here is it's blurry as all get out on the screenshots, and it seems like it's all kinds of different weapons. It seems like it's a very ambitious action game. I don't know if you call this really a fighting game, but one or the other. But it's just so blurry, and it clearly is just a bunch of asset flips. $7.99 discounted, and it's Chinese and Japanese, so I would suspect it's probably a low effort Japanese game if I'm gonna pick. But
Desperate. Let me go home. Here we go.
let's see what the negative reviews are. Horrible, clunky controls, gamepad doesn't work, rather poor graphics. Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like to me too, so yep, that's not making it to the follow list. Next we have a game on Steam called Exogenesis Perils of Rebirth. It says it's an adventure, but it's really an adventure / visual novel game from Sekai Project, which is a slightly recognizable name. And yeah, this is one that looks good enough to deserve to be followed, but oddly it's early access for a visual novel, which doesn't make sense. And they want $29.99 with no discount, which is extremely expensive. It's also no Japanese full audio or Japanese interface or subtitles. So this is very possibly a game that is just way too expensive, and thus it will never make it enough reviews, but I'll put it on the follow list to give it a chance. Of course, it is also a visual novel game, so I'm not sure I'll ever get around to that anyways. Alright, where are we now? Win one game mode, which was play Paladin and rank and see if we can get a win. Next we have a game on Steam called Ghost Game, which seems to be like a Asteroids style clone where you're playing as a ghost. The idea is kind of funny. The animation's kind of unique, but yeah, this really is just Asteroid clones and what is this? Arkanoid? No, not Arkanoid. I forgot what this one was called. Just old arcade game clones, low effort gameplay development. $4.99. No way is it similar to Rogue Legacy. Let's see. Let's see what we have next. Next, there's a game on Steam here called Rain's Love Memory, and then a bunch of Asian characters. It says it's a free-to-play visual novel. Look at the art style change in this character versus that. Look at how wide her face is and how it's angled here, and then here it's way sharper. Also it's turned certainly, and that might be why. But this seems like it's only one character and then a bunch of backgrounds, which makes me suspect it's probably a low effort Chinese visual novel. Yeah, English is not supported, it's free, and it's only Chinese, yeah. So yeah, English of course not being supported is a deal breaker, but I don't think that would have been the only deal breaker in that case. Right, so this guy is gonna get this and this and this. Gamatsu has an interesting story here. Magica record Puglia Magica Modoka Magica side story is coming to the US and Canada this summer. If you're not familiar with the Puglia Magica Modoka series, it's a magical girl series of animes, mangas that was very well received, but they have this horrible twist, and spoiler in the middle of it, is that to become magical girls, these young characters sell their souls basically, and when as part of the bargain of selling their souls, they usually never get what they wished for. They're selling their souls for a wish, but also to pay for that wish they then have to become magical girls that fight against witches. It turns out witches are magical girls after they've used up a certain amount of energy and gone rampant, basically gone crazy. And so all magical girls get turned into witches. It creates this horrendous cycle of violence, and the series, what looks like it would be for young girls, is actually incredibly dark and twisted, and is for much closer to an edgy 18-year-old anime fan, not a new cartoon fan of 8-year-olds. This is Madoka, and this is also Madoka as she grew older in later parts of the series.
Well played.
So this is kind of her slightly grown up point. I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said on that, other than this is going to be a Aniplex of America is bringing the smartphone game over, and will tell a side story. Side stories in anime happen all the time. Most of the time they're not that important, because if it was a good story, it would be something shown through an anime or a movie. But for fans of the series, of which I would include myself, it's slightly interesting. What this really represents more than anything, I'm gonna play the trailer while it's off screen. What this really represents is the idea of more of the Japanese tie-in advertisement cell phone games coming to the West. Means we might get slightly better quality well, slightly better quality mobile games in general. I'm just playing horribly. Gonna lose. That being said, as I'm watching the trailers, there are only so many anime video games worth playing in the first place, so it doesn't mean we're gonna get a huge amount of significantly better animated and written mobile games. We'll just get a smaller amount, but it is a good step in the right direction. Any kind of tie-in marketing to video games are something that I would like to probably do. I'm gonna play one more game, but this time casual, and then that's gonna be it for this stream. We're just gonna end early because we started early, which is great and fine by me. That gives me more time to try and schedule more videos, which this weekend in particular was terrible as far as an effort to try to schedule videos, which is the worst part of being a YouTuber. Next, I wanted to point out this game, Geometry May. I swear it's a nice free game. There's been a developer who's been putting out these troll games that are trying to sell these extremely low effort bad games by just putting out some anime girls in bikinis on top of the thumbnail, and heck, sex does sell, so it probably does work. This is rated very positively. I'm not saying you should buy it, but since it's free and there's only a 99-cent DLC you can buy here, there is something to be said about getting desperate and trying to sell your game in any way you can. Arguably, this is trolling behavior. Arguably, this is sleazy behavior. Almost inarguably. But yeah, we've seen this developer do this before, and he's not flooding Steam with them or anything. He seems to do it once every few months or so. So I doubt any storefront that would let the entire video game industry go down that route. We might see some of that though, as GameStop and video game retail sales become less important. The selling on deceptive cover art concept might be used more and more. It certainly is something that happened with the VHS renting genre, certainly in the VHS buying genre. Notoriously for decades, when the only way you could see a movie was either at a movie theater when it was out, or by renting it or buying it at a video store. Very notoriously, people would put deceptive box art on VHS movies, and what was on the box art looked nothing really like what was on the movie, or it barely was close to what the movie was. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Foxyland. It looks like it's a pretty polished platformer and adventure game. Foxyland 2. The thing I'd want to know is if Foxyland 1 exists. It's $2.54 discounted and supports a bunch of languages. This is one of those games where it's like, I always complain about there not being enough. Well, the first game is mixed reviews, so okay, I'm not gonna put the sequel on the fall list then. I always complain about there not being enough Super Mario Bros. Clones on Steam, but then every time I see something that's close to a Super Mario Bros. Game on Steam, it looks like garbage to me. So probably I just have not been able to admit it to myself, but probably I just have nostalgia for Super Mario Brothers, and really would only probably play Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 for a few minutes before I got bored and left.
Reporting for duty.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Siege of the Centauri, which looks like a real-time strategy game, but actually it's a tower defense game. Now I look at the tags. Even a good-looking tower defense game, though, I have no interest in. It's from Stardock Entertainment, which is the publisher of a bunch of old games, and Star Control, an off-world trading company. Is it old games that Stardock publishes? Galactic Civilization, Sins of a Solar Empire. You know what? I'll put this on the fall list because of its publisher and see if people actually like it. The odds of me actually playing a tower defense game, though, and buying one is pretty small. I really don't feel like there's ever been a time when a tower defense game has been interesting enough to really want me to play it. Let's see. Here's an article we had from earlier from Komatsu. Dark Devotion launches April 25th for PC and later for PS4 and Switch. It's an interesting character. Looks like she might be a ninja, maybe not. It's a PC version of a side-scrolling RPG. This has a Steam link. We should probably go look at the Steam link then instead of watching the trailer. Let's see.
Follow the rules.
Job's done.
Right. So here's Dark Devotion. It's tagged as a Metroidvania game. I guess that's what it is. Interesting. So it's like a Metroidvania game, which I was gonna play Axiom Verge. I think as I'm scheduling things and I'm up to September, playing Axiom Verge for Halloween month actually might work pretty well. So yeah, Dark Devotion definitely looks like something that deserves to be on the fall list, even though it's not even out yet.
Let me think.
That has caught my eye.
The light protects me.
Okay. What do I do? This
Reporting for duty.
and that.
Job's done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Whispers of a Machine, which is a point-and-click adventure. And of course, I'm a sucker for point-and-click adventures, so yeah, this looks like it's very smoothly animated. It's got face zoom-ins. This is what you would want. It's widescreen, it seems. This is everything you would want in a more modern, flat 2D point-and-click adventure game. $14.99 is a little expensive. And the game before that is Kathy Rain, which is also a point-and-click adventure game. It's not widescreen, but it's on my wish list, probably because it's rated very positively. Hopefully, one would hope that Whispers of a Machine is not a direct continuation of Kathy Rain. I don't think it is. So I guess I could buy both in a bundle and get another 10% off. Alright, well, that's definitely
The light protects me.
going to the follow list, I guess.
Reporting for duty.
Move
The battle.
Can kill this. I said I should kill this. Next, there's this game I wanted to point out called Granny Simulator, which is just that same game that streamers were playing for a long time, where it's a baby trying to kill itself, and the father is trying to stop them, and it's backwards. Players go backwards and forwards with that. Although apparently they've given Granny a taser to tase the kid. Early access for $4.99. This is just a clone of a bad game. I wanted to point that out because, you know, this really should not exist. The original version of this game should not have gotten popular. It is one of the downfalls of streamers, is that they can, on occasion, just make games that do not deserve the credit. Way too many sales and way too much popularity. And I think streamers in general probably are going to have to come together and realize that and stop playing garbage joke games, even if it does get them sales. And I don't know how that can happen, really. Next we have a game on Steam called The Renovator, which is going to have creepy statues in a place and just scary asset flips in general. This game is 99 cents in English and Russian. Because it's Russian, because it's cheap, I can pretty well tell you that this is just going to be an asset flip horror game, and that means it's not going to ever really justify itself.
Well played.
But I guess I'll put it on the follow list and give it a decent chance. Anyways, it is rated positive right now.
Well played.
But that certainly is kind of the same argument. It's like, this game, The Renovator, really does not deserve to be streamed, I'm fairly certain. But I'll give it a chance. And see, that just now puts me at the Humble Bundle before I go back to my Twitter feed to see if there's any new video game news. Let's see if there are any new Humble Bundle bundles out today. Nope. So that's nothing to concern myself with. And so now I'm gonna just let's see.
Whoops.
Somebody who TubeBuddy knows died. That really doesn't have anything to do with video game news, though. So somebody knows died is not really news. Let's see. Earth Day is nothing, although it's overemphasized, I think, by YouTube. Let's see. Mel Brooks is going on Broadway. Get your tickets now. Again, not video game news related. Let's see. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Over 200 Fortnite World Cup prize winners were caught cheating. Over 1,200 total cheaters were caught in the first week of the competition, mostly for circumventing region locks. Okay, so VPNing. I don't know if that in specifically counts for.
Runs out on me.
I don't know if that specifically should be considered cheating, though. I want to point this one out. South Korean FTC to review in-game purchasing policies. We already saw this article, but this is that game I used to play called. I thought it was called Tower of Saviors, but maybe it's called Tree of Saviors, or maybe it just gets translated differently. But yeah, just match 3 puzzle game. That's what I like about Destiny Child, though, is that it's not a match 3 puzzle game. In fact, it's not really a game much at all. So you don't have to play at all. You can just automate everything instead of having to drag your finger around and hurt your fingers after a while, for as much as you might play the game. Let's see. Walmart wants you to pre-order now. By the way, the Gearbox VIP thing, I signed up for that, and immediately to qualify for anything you have to pre-order Borderlands 3, which pretty much means you have to pre-order it either for console or the Epic Store. So being a VIP means you definitely have to get screwed on your choice of platform if you're a PC gamer. Without scrolling all the way around on my Twitter feed to ensure that I didn't miss something, because that's how the Twitter feed often works for me, is that there will be new posts and then old posts and then new posts again. I don't know why, but that seems to be the way things go. I'm just going to assume that there's no more news to talk about, so we are done. Not really, but good enough. I have one daily quest that we can work on Wednesday on the Asian account, one, I think, a daily quest that we can work on Wednesday on the European account, and no daily quests on the Americas account. It's barely been 3 hours. I don't even think it really has been 3 hours for this one episode, so yeah. Starting early, finishing early, it's a nice feeling. It's not something that happens often for me. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.